Any good party needs a melee brute that can stand there and tank all the hits for them. So today we're going to go through some class options to fit this role in Baldur's Gate 3 to help you decide who will be that sort of tank or melee brute for your party. Let's go! Let me know in the comments who you're picking. So this sort of tank role, what I'm referring to, is not necessarily like a tried and traditional tank that's going to taunt or use compelled duel or something like that, but essentially a melee focused brawler that can tank the brunt of your damage that's coming towards your party because they have a high health pool as well as a high armor class. Now, just quickly, if you don't know what that is, armor class is what is checked against the attack roll of anything that's attacked. So when something attacks, they make a d20 roll plus any modifiers, and then if it's higher than the armor class of the target, that attack actually hits. But if it is lower, then the attack misses. So having a high armor class as well as a high health pool and having someone that fits this role in a party is really important, so you can not only avoid damage from attacks from enemies, but also if you do actually get hit, you can tank some of that damage without having your party get knocked out. Now, there's a couple of classes that sort of fit this generic sort of a role, and that would be the Barbarian, the Fighter, and the Paladin. But there are other like hybrid options, which we'll touch on briefly in a little bit, but we'll start with the Barbarian. Now, the Barbarians are the most sort of classical strength focused brute class. Now, Karlach is a companion that is a Barbarian in the party, but the Barbarians have the highest starting health pool. Now, they're definitely melee focused, using that rage mechanic as well as reckless damage. So what rage is it's a mechanic for the Barbarian that when you are raging, you gain additional damage for your melee and improvised weapon attacks, as well as some resistances and some other benefits depending on the subclass that you pick. Now, while you're raging, you will need to either attack an enemy or take damage every turn to keep your rage benefits. So that's why the Barbarian fits this role perfectly. They also come with unarmored defense, so while you're not wearing armor, your armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity and your constitution modifier. So you typically won't wear armor as a Barbarian, though you definitely can. Now at level 5, they also gain an extra attack. But the subclasses for the Barbarian are either leaning into the rage and aggression mechanics like the Berserker, or giving you some sort of a bestial heart to evoke aspects of creatures to enhance your rage in different ways, like Wild Heart, or even give you some sort of magic options like the Wild Magic subclass. But for the most part, as a Barbarian, you will be focused in melee combat using reckless attack, as well as using your rage mechanic to just deal raw, like martial damage with whatever sort of a weapon you're using, whether you're using a two-handed weapon or dual wielding some sort of weapons. That is the key focus for the Barbarian. You definitely want to be taking damage to keep that rage mechanic going, or dealing damage and vice versa. Conversely, the Fighter is the master of the art of combat, wielding weapons with unmatched skill and wearing armor like a second skin. So the Fighter is very similar in the way that they are a very martial focused class, but they're a bit more broad in their options, being able to use ranged or melee weapons, plus having a huge array of proficiencies. So not only are they a flexible class for melee and range, they also have second wind, so using their bonus action, they can actually regain some of their health points, and they can also pick a class passive here, which will give them benefits to their chosen fighting style, whether that be archery or defense or dueling for dual wielding, or even great weapon fighting, holding some sort of a two-handed weapon. But they are really masters of using some sort of a martial setup, whatever that is, but they've got a wide range of the armor proficiencies and shield proficiencies, as well as weapon proficiencies as well. Now, the subclasses for a Fighter, you've got Battle Master, which will give you some superiority die to benefit your martial attacks much more and give you access to different sort of attacks. Eldritch Knight is the study of magic, so you will gain access to some spells here, which isn't really sort of what we're setting up here as sort of the tanky melee focused, but you can definitely go that route if you wanted to deal some sort of ranged options, especially if say you're focusing on like an archery fighter. Having the Eldritch Knight isn't a bad option either. And then Champion, which isn't in the early access. But the Fighter is a more consistent class that will be wearing armor to add to their armor class, as well as being able to heal themselves a little bit with second wind, but also have great weapon proficiencies and focusing on that damage rather than buffing themselves with something like a rage mechanic, right? But they also gain an extra attack at level 5 and at level 11, so you will be able to attack multiple times, but you've also got the different ways that you can buff yourself, and you'll definitely lean into the different attack types that certain weapons have. Say if they can do a pommel strike with a two-handed weapon or something like that, you'll be using those sort of skills very often. The Paladin are fueled by their oath that they swore to uphold justice and righteousness. Now, Paladins definitely fit this format. They are a melee-focused class, but they're a little bit different in that they have some support spells that they can cast to heal themselves, as well as heal allies and buff and debuff and that sort of a thing. So the primary modifier here is going to be strength as well, and they also come with Divine Smite, which is allowing you to spend a spell slot to add radiant damage to any of your melee attacks. Now, because of this, they also do gain an extra attack at level 5, but they won't gain an extra one at level 11. But the benefit to Divine Smite is that their raw damage output just by spending that spell slot in terms of their martial attacks is going to be significantly higher because they're able to add that extra damage on top of the overall effects that they're doing. Now, you also will gain the option to pick a fighting style here out of defense, dueling, great weapon fighting, or protection. Archery isn't an option here, and you probably will never use archery for a paladin because you want to be in that melee range for something like Divine Smite. The other aspect of the kit really is Lay of Hands, which will allow you to heal allies around you. Also, if you're focused on the Devotion Oath, then you also get access to the Holy Rebuke reaction. So anytime someone hits you, you can react with some extra damage. So the paladin is a really good option to fit this role because of they've got all the light, medium, and heavy armor efficiencies. You've got the shield and the simple and martial weapons, so you can carry any sort of a weapon. You can use a shield, all the armors, plus you can do a little bit of healing. You can also increase your damage outputs. They're a little bit different. They're not just focused on the weapon usage. You've got flexibility as a barbarian in terms of what you want to do. So really comparing these different options here. Now, in terms of proficiencies, for the most part, the proficiencies here are exactly the same, with all the paladin, the fighter, and the barbarian having simple and martial weapons, light and medium armor, and they all have shield proficiencies, but the fighter and the paladin also have heavy armor. You'll never wear heavy armor as a barbarian because you'll lose the benefit to your movement speed, but also for the most part, you probably won't wear armor as the barbarian because of the extra modifiers you get for not wearing armor, but you've also got the same proficiencies across the board. It just depends how you want to build out those kit. For the saving throws, the barbarian and fighter both have strength and constitution, and the paladin has wisdom and charisma. Now, spell slots and like cantrip wise, you're not really going to have any other than the paladin, right? The paladin will gain spells at level 2 and then also gain spell slots every level increase from that point. You can get some spells and spell slots if you choose to go those subclass routes for the barbarian and the fighter, but to fit this sort of tank role, we're not really going to be going that option, but the paladin, you'll just get them naturally regardless of the setup that you do go. In terms of other like hybrid options, you've got plenty here, right? So you've got the School of Valor Bard, you've got the Tempest or the Life Domain Cleric that can focus on that melee range. A wild-shaped druid as like say a bear can definitely fill this sort of a role, or potentially even a monk, because you will definitely be in melee range as a monk, punching people or using some sort of a weapon. But that's essentially the general setups for this role. So you've really got to decide out of these three classes what the main focus is. Say as a paladin, do you want some sort of a spell casting or support aspects to the kit? Do you want to just focus on unbridled physical damage and like raw power? Then the paladin definitely fits that role. Or do you want more flexibility in terms of say your weapon usage or what you want to focus and specialize on? Then the fighter fits that role because of their different flexibility. I can't remember if I mentioned it earlier, but Lae'zel is a fighter as one of the companions as well. So you've got Karlach as a barbarian and Lae'zel as a fighter, and then potentially you could play as them as well. But let me know what you're thinking in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.